There is a kind of confidence that cannot be faked, a confidence that doesn't need to announce itself or dominate the room. It's the confidence of a man who understands that intimacy is an art form, that pleasure is not a battlefield but a language. He steps into connection not with the need to prove something, but with the desire to understand, to explore, to offer presence instead of performance. And something remarkable happens when a man adopts this mindset. He becomes grounded, steady, unshaken by ego or insecurity, because he knows that pleasure is not a test to pass but an experience to co-create. Confidence grows from connection, not conquest, because true self-assurance in intimacy is not born from a desire to dominate or impress but from the ability to engage with another human being with openness, curiosity, and presence. When a man shifts his mindset from seeking validation to seeking connection, he naturally steps into a more grounded version of himself. He no longer needs to perform or chase approval because he understands that intimacy is not a competition where one must prove worthiness. Instead, it becomes a shared experience where both partners contribute, respond, and evolve together. This shift changes the entire energy of the encounter. He begins to listen differently, to hold space differently, and to express himself with a kind of clarity and authenticity that can only emerge when a person feels secure in who they are. In this space, his confidence is no longer fragile or dependent on external measures. It becomes stable, steady, and deeply rooted in the understanding that connection is the real currency of intimacy. A man who prioritizes connection recognizes that intimacy is a dialogue, not a monologue. It requires emotional agility, an ability to sense the other person's needs, and the courage to stay engaged even in moments of uncertainty. When he focuses on a woman's pleasure, not as a duty but as a reflection of mutual enjoyment, he becomes attuned to the subtle signals that guide deeper closeness. This attunement enhances his confidence because it teaches him that he has the capacity to create experiences that are meaningful and memorable. He learns to trust his intuition, his sensitivity, and his ability to navigate moments beyond the surface level. Each positive exchange reinforces the belief that connection is where real satisfaction lives, not in proving dominance or expertise. This kind of confidence also grows because connection invites vulnerability, and vulnerability is the birthplace of strength. When a man allows himself to be present without armor, when he lets go of rigid expectations and instead commits to exploring the moment as it unfolds, he is practicing a form of courage that builds inner resilience. He is not afraid of being seen, nor is he intimidated by the emotional depth that intimacy can invite. Instead, he embraces it. In doing so, he discovers that pleasure is not simply a physical act but an emotional exchange that thrives on trust, communication, and reciprocity. The more he leans into this understanding, the more confident he becomes, because he realizes that he is capable of creating connection not through power, but through presence. Presence is the highest form of confidence because it reflects a man's ability to be fully rooted in the moment, attentive to the experience unfolding in front of him rather than distracted by insecurities, expectations, or performance-driven thoughts. When a man prioritizes a woman's pleasure, his attention naturally deepens. He becomes more aware of the subtle cues, the rhythm of her breath, the shift in her tone, the language of her body. This level of presence communicates something quiet yet powerful, that he is not rushing, not escaping into his head, not measuring himself by external standards, but instead choosing to be right here, engaged and connected. This choice reveals a mature form of confidence because it shows he is comfortable enough within himself to slow down, observe, and respond without fear of not being enough. Presence becomes a mirror of inner steadiness, a display of emotional composure that makes intimacy feel safer and more meaningful. A man who embodies presence is not trying to predict the outcome or control the moment. He is not overwhelmed by the pressure to impress. His confidence comes from his capacity to listen, to truly listen, with more than just his ears. This kind of listening is an act of devotion, an act of awareness, and it enables him to understand what brings comfort, what builds anticipation, what creates connection. Instead of acting out of habit or ego, he acts out of attunement. That attunement is what makes him magnetic. It tells a woman that he values the truth of the moment more than the illusion of mastery. This makes her feel seen, and when she feels seen, she relaxes, softens, and meets him with a deeper sense of trust. That trust feeds the dynamic between them, making the entire experience far richer than surface-level exchanges driven by technique alone. Presence also requires emotional regulation, which is a profound indicator of confidence. A man who can stay present is a man who is not thrown off by silence, by vulnerability, by unpredictability, or by the depth of emotion that intimacy can stir up. He does not need distraction to cope with discomfort, he has the maturity to stay with it. That ability to remain grounded becomes a form of leadership, not dominance, but guidance, support, and steadiness. It shows he is capable of navigating closeness without withdrawing or resorting to bravado. In this grounded presence, he creates a space where pleasure can unfold naturally, where both partners can explore without pressure, and where intimacy becomes not just an act but an experience shaped by connection, curiosity, and mutual awareness. Reciprocity strengthens desire because intimacy flourishes when both people feel valued, acknowledged, and emotionally engaged rather than treated as one-sided participants. When a man prioritizes a woman's pleasure, he naturally encourages a dynamic where connection moves back and forth instead of flowing in only one direction. This exchange, this mutual offering of attention, effort, and responsiveness, creates a space where desire becomes more vibrant and sustainable. Instead of relying on assumptions or routine, both partners begin to tune into each other, creating a rhythm that feels alive. Reciprocity becomes the element that transforms intimacy from a predictable act into a shared experience that evolves moment by moment. It allows both individuals to feel like contributors to the experience rather than spectators or performers. When both feel included, desire has room to expand rather than diminish. A man who understands reciprocity does not think of pleasure as something he gives or receives in isolation. He recognizes that the most fulfilling moments come when there is a flow of energy, curiosity, and engagement between partners. By being attentive to her pleasure, he invites her to respond with her own form of presence, whether through expression, guidance, touch, or emotional openness. This mutual participation strengthens attraction because each partner becomes more invested in the other's experience. There is a sense of co-creation, a feeling that intimacy is being shaped by both sides, which prevents the connection from becoming mechanical or imbalanced. This kind of dynamic encourages openness, exploration, and trust, all of which amplify desire in ways that simple technique cannot. Reciprocity also deepens emotional connection, which is essential for long-term attraction. When a woman feels cared for and prioritized, she is more likely to feel safe expressing her desires, boundaries, and fantasies. This freedom creates a richer landscape for intimacy, allowing the relationship to grow beyond surface-level connection. The man, in turn, feels more confident because he knows he is not navigating alone, he is receiving feedback, energy, and engagement that affirm his efforts. This mutual responsiveness fosters a sense of partnership rather than pressure. The more attuned they become to each other, the more natural it feels to explore deeper levels of vulnerability and pleasure. In this way, reciprocity becomes the foundation of lasting desire because it ensures that neither partner feels overlooked or taken for granted. Instead, both feel involved, appreciated, and connected, which creates a cycle where desire continuously feeds the relationship rather than fading over time. Pleasure-centered men carry an inner security because they understand that intimacy is not a place where ego must be protected but a space where connection can expand. When a man prioritizes a woman's pleasure, he reveals that he is not afraid of being vulnerable, attentive, or emotionally expressive. Instead of viewing intimacy as a performance that could expose his inadequacies, he sees it as an exchange that can deepen closeness and reveal strength. This shift in mindset creates a sense of inner peace, a confidence that doesn't depend on being perfect but on being present, responsive, and grounded. He becomes someone who is not easily shaken by uncertainty, because he knows that real connection is rooted in mutual attunement rather than in rigid expectations or scripted roles. This internal stability allows him to step into intimacy with clarity rather than anxiety, with curiosity rather than fear. A man who places value on a woman's pleasure also demonstrates that he trusts himself, his instincts, his emotional intelligence, and his ability to create meaningful experiences. This trust does not come from knowing everything, it comes from being willing to discover, adapt, and grow alongside his partner. Such men do not feel threatened by the unpredictability of desire or the emotional depth that intimacy often brings. Instead, they embrace these elements as invitations to connect more authentically. This is what makes their confidence feel so real. They are steady not because they control every moment, but because they allow every moment to unfold without retreating into defensiveness. Their security comes from the inside, built on the belief that they are capable of creating pleasure, connection, and safety not through dominance, but through attention and empathy. This inner security also becomes evident in how they handle vulnerability. Pleasure-centered men understand that vulnerability is not a weakness to be masked but a bridge that brings two people closer. They do not fear emotional intensity, they lean into it. They do not avoid conversations about needs or desires, they welcome them. When a woman expresses what she wants, they do not feel criticized or inadequate. They feel trusted. And this trust reinforces their confidence, reminding them that intimacy is a collaborative experience. Such men are not defined by fear of failure or comparison, they are defined by their ability to stay engaged, to adapt, and to create space for their partner's pleasure without losing their own sense of identity. In this balance, they find an unshakable security, a kind of quiet strength that makes their presence feel both grounding and deeply compelling. True confidence is quiet because it does not need to be proven, defended, or broadcasted. It is expressed through presence, patience, and attunement rather than grand gestures or excessive self-assurance. A man who prioritizes a woman's pleasure understands that intimacy is not a stage where he must perform, impress, or dominate. Instead, it is a space where subtlety carries far more power than noise. His confidence becomes evident in the way he listens, the way he observes, the way he adjusts without making it about his ego. He doesn't rush. He doesn't push. He doesn't seek applause. He knows that the most meaningful experiences arise when both partners feel free, relaxed, and connected. This quiet confidence creates an atmosphere where a woman can let go of tension and step fully into her own desire because she senses that he is steady, grounded, and genuinely present with her. A man embodying this kind of confidence communicates with intention rather than intensity. His touch is mindful rather than hurried. His words are chosen with care rather than used to fill silence. He doesn't try to predict or control the moment, he leans into it, trusting that the connection will guide them both. This trust is what makes his confidence unmistakable. He understands that intimacy thrives not in perfection but in responsiveness. He pays attention to what feels right for her, how her body and emotions shift, and he moves with those signals instead of imposing his own rhythm. This ability to follow and lead with equal grace reveals that he is secure enough not to cling to rigid ideas of masculinity or performance. He finds strength in sensitivity, clarity in calmness, and power in presence. Quiet confidence also shows in the way he handles uncertainty or vulnerability. He is not unsettled by moments of hesitation or silence, he sees them as part of the natural unfolding of intimacy. He doesn't become reactive or defensive when desires or boundaries are communicated. Instead, he listens, absorbs, and responds with understanding. This emotional steadiness invites deeper trust, allowing a woman to express herself without fear of judgment or pressure. She feels safe enough to explore, to guide, to open up, because he creates a space that feels anchored and attentive. In that space, intimacy becomes richer, more layered, and more authentic. By offering this kind of energy, he makes it clear that his confidence comes not from performing a role but from knowing who he is and being comfortable bringing that grounded self into every moment they share.